Luke chapter 17. Now he said to his students, "It can't be admitted that obstacles that can cause one to trip aren't going to come. However, how terrible it is for him through whom they come. It would be an advantage for him if he had a millstone encircling his neck and had been tossed into the sea, rather than that he should cause one of these little ones to trip. You must continually pay attention to yourselves. If your brother or sister does something that is wrong, you must rebuke him, and if he changes his thoughts and feelings, you must forgive him. Now if he does things that are wrong against you 7 times a day, and then returns 7 times to you, saying, 'I have changed my thoughts and feelings,' you must forgive him." Now the dispatched envoys said to the master, "Add to our faith." Yet the master said, "If you have faith like a mustard kernel, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Uproot yourself and plant yourself in the sea,' and it would obey you. Now, which one of you, if he had a slave plowing or shepherding sheep, would declare to him when he comes in from the field, 'You must come over here immediately and lean back at the table'? But won't he declare to him, 'You must make something ready for my supper, and after you have wrapped yourself with an apron ready to work, you must be serving me until I have finished eating and drinking. Then, after that, you shall eat and drink'? He doesn't thank the slave because he did what was advocated, does he? So you too, when you do everything that was advocated to you, you must be continually saying, 'We are unprofitable slaves. We have only done what we ought to have done.'" Now it occurred, while he was going to Jerusalem, that he was also going across the border between Samaria and Galilee. Now as he entered into a certain village, 10 lepers met him, who stood a distance ahead, and they lifted up their voices, saying, "Jesu, Commander, have mercy on us." Then, when he noticed them, he said to them, "You must go and show yourselves to the priests." Now it occurred that as they were going away, they were made clean. Now one of them, when he noticed that he was healed, returned, esteeming Almighty with a loud voice. Then he fell on his face at his feet, thanking him. And he was a Samaritan. Now in response, Jesus said, "Weren't there 10 made clean? Yet where are the other 9? Were none found who returned to give esteem to Almighty, except this one from another country?" Then he said to him, "You must rise up and go. Your faith has saved you from your disease." Now when he was asked by the Pharisees as to when Almighty's kingdom was coming, he responded to them and said, "Almighty's kingdom isn't coming with something that can be noticed by keeping close notice. Nor will they declare, 'Notice, here it is,' or 'There it is,' for notice, Almighty's kingdom is inside of you." Yet he said to his students, "The days will come when you will desire to notice one of the days of the Son of Humanity, and you won't see it. Then they will declare to you, 'Notice, there it is,' or 'Notice, here it is.' You must not go away with them, or even pursue it. For just as when the lightning flashes, it shines from here under the sky to there under the sky, this is how the Son of Humanity will be on his day, the day of the last age. Yet first he has to suffer many things, and be disapproved by those of this era. Now just as it occurred during the days of Noah, this is how it will also be during the days of the Son of Humanity. They were eating, drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage, up to the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, just as it occurred during the days of Lot, they were eating, drinking, buying, selling, planting, and building. Yet on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, fire and sulfur rained from the sky and destroyed them all. These are the same things that will be on the day that the Son of Humanity is revealed, at the beginning of the last age. On that day, whoever is on the housetop with his items in the house must not descend to pick them up, and likewise whoever is in the field must not turn back to the things behind him. You must be continually remembering Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to purchase his sentient being, his life, will destroy it in the destruction. Yet whoever destroys it will cause it to live in the last age. I say to you, on this night there will be two people on one couch. One will be taken along, and the other will be left. There will be two women grinding at the same place. One will be taken along, yet the other will be left. No, verse 36. Then, in response, they said to him, Where, Master? Yet he said to them, Wherever the body is, there the vultures will also be gathered. Luke chapter 18. Now he began telling them an illustration, to illustrate that they ought to always be praying, and not be discouraged, saying, There was in a certain city a certain judge, who didn't fear Almighty, or show humans any respect. Now in that city was a widow, and she kept coming to him, saying, You must get justice for me from the person bringing suit against me. Now for a time he wasn't willing, yet after a while he said to himself, Even though I don't fear Almighty, or show humans any respect, definitely, because this widow is continually making me to have tiring labor, I will get justice for her, so that with her continually coming she isn't going to bruise me to the completion of my life. You must hear what the unjust judge said. Now won't Almighty by all means be getting justice for his chosen ones, who are crying out to him day and night, even though he is being patient for them? I say to you, he will be getting justice for them within a short time. However, when the Son of Humanity comes, will he therefore find faith on the earth? Now he also told this illustration to some who were having confidence in themselves that they were just and right, while they also treated the rest with contempt. Two humans went up to the sacred place to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other a tribute or tax collector. The Pharisee stood and was praying this to himself. Almighty, I thank you that I'm not just like the rest of the humans, those who take things by force, those who are unjust, those who have extramarital sexual intercourse, or even like this tribute or tax collector. I fast twice between Sabbath days and give 1/10 from everything that I acquire. Now the tribute or tax collector stood a distance away and wasn't even willing to lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his chest, saying, Almighty, make a shelter of mercy for me, the wrongdoer. I say to you, this person descended to his home justified, rather than the other one. For whoever elevates himself will be humbled, or have life removed from him. Yet whoever humbles himself will be elevated to life in the last age. Now they were also bringing their babies to him, so that he might touch them. Yet when the students noticed this, they began rebuking them. Yet Jesus called them to him, saying, Let the little children come to me, and stop forbidding them, for Almighty's kingdom belongs to ones such as these. Truly I say to you, Whoever doesn't accept Almighty's kingdom like a little child shall under no circumstances enter into it." Now a certain chief asked him, saying, "Good teacher, after doing what thing will I inherit a share of the life in the last age?" Now Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good, except one, Almighty. You are acquainted with the directions. You must not have extramarital sexual intercourse. You must not murder. You must not steal. You must not give false testimony. You must be continually honoring your father and mother." Exodus 20, verses 13 through 16. Now he said, "I have maintained all of these from my youth." Now when Jesus heard this, he said to him, "You are still lacking in one thing. You must sell everything you have and distribute the money to the poor. Then you will have treasure in the heavens. Then you will come here and be continually following me." Yet when he heard these things, he became exceedingly sorrowful, for he was tremendously rich. Now when Jesus noticed this, he said, "How difficult it is for those who have money to enter into Almighty's kingdom. For it is easier for a camel to enter through the eye of a surgeon's needle than for a rich person to enter into Almighty's kingdom." Now when they heard this, they said, "So who can be saved from destruction?" Now he said, "The things impossible with humans are possible with Almighty." Now Peter said, "Notice, after we have left our own things, we have followed you." Now he said to them, "Truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or wife or brothers or parents or children on account of Almighty's kingdom, who shall not by all means get back many times over in this time period, and in the coming age, life in the last age." Now he took the 12 aside and said to them, "Notice, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that has been written through the prophets about the Son of Humanity will be done completely. For he will be delivered over to the pagans, and he will be mocked and treated with outrage and spat upon. Then, when they have afflicted him with lashes, they will kill him. Then on the third day he will rise up." Now they didn't understand any of these things, and this declaration was hidden from them, and they didn't even begin to know about the things that were said. Now it occurred that as he drew near to Jericho, a certain blind person was sitting beside the road begging. Now when he heard a crowd going through, he began quizzing them about what this might mean. Now they reported to him, "Jesus the Nazarene is passing by." So he cried out, saying, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Then those taking the lead were rebuking him to be silent. Yet he began yelling out even more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Now after Jesus stood still, he ordered that he be led to him. Now when he drew near, he asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" Now he said, "Master, I want to receive my sight." Then Jesus said to him, "Receive your sight. Your faith has saved you from being blind." Now instantly he received his sight and began following him, esteeming Almighty. Then, when the entire people noticed it, they gave praise to Almighty. Luke chapter 19. Then he entered and was passing through Jericho. Now notice, there was a man who was called by the name of Zacchaeus, and was a chief tribute tax collector, and he was rich. Now he was seeking to see who Jesus was, and was unable because of the crowd, since he was little in his maximum development of height. So he ran ahead to the front and climbed up into a fig mulberry to see him, since he was about to pass through that way. Now when Jesus came to that place and looked up, he said to him, Zacchaeus, you must hurry and descend, for today I have to stay at your house. So he hurried and descended, and provided him with accommodations with rejoicing. Now when they noticed this, they all began grumbling openly, saying, He has entered to find a place to stay for the night with a man who is a wrongdoer. Now Zacchaeus stood up and said to the master, Notice, master, I'm going to give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have taken anything by blackmail from anyone, I'm going to pay it back 4 times over. Exodus 22, verse 1. Now Jesus said to him, Today salvation from destruction has come to this home, since even he is Abraham's son. For the Son of Humanity has come to seek and to save from destruction those who have been lost. Now while they were hearing these things, he proceeded and spoke an illustration, because he was near Jerusalem. And they had the impression that Almighty's kingdom was about to instantly appear on the horizon. He said then, A certain human from a high-class family went into a far country to obtain a kingdom for himself, and then returned. Now after he had called 10 of his slaves, he gave them 1,000 number 80 Greek coins, and said to them, You must go into business until I come back. Now his citizens were hating him, and dispatched a delegation after him, saying, We don't want this person to reign over us. Now it occurred that when he came back, after he had obtained the kingdom, he said to summon these slaves to him, to whom he had given the silver coins, so that he might know what business they had done. Now the first person came along and said, Master, your 100 number 80 Greek coins has earned 1,000 number 80 Greek coins. So he said to him, Well done, good slave. Since it occurred to you to be faithful in a small thing, you must be having authority over 10 cities. Then the second person came and said, Master, your 100 number 80 Greek coins has made 500 number 80 Greek coins. Now he said to this person also, So you must be over 5 cities. Then a different person came and said, Master, notice, here is your 100 number 80 Greek coins that I kept reserved in a handkerchief. For I was afraid of you, because you are a harsh human. You pick up what you didn't lay down, and harvest what you didn't plant as seeds. He said to him, Out of your mouth will I judge you, you wicked slave. You were aware that I am a harsh human, picking up what I didn't lay down, and harvesting what I didn't plant as seeds. So why didn't you give my silver coins to the bank? Then, when I came, I could have utilized it together with the interest. Then he said to those who stood by, Take the 100 number 80 Greek coins away from him, and give them to the person who had the 1,000 number 80 Greek coins. Then they said to him, Master, he has 1,000 number 80 Greek coins. I say to you, whoever uses what he has, more will be given to him. Yet whoever doesn't use what he has, even what he has, will be taken away from him. However, these enemies of mine, who didn't want me to reign over them, you must lead them here and slaughter them in front of me. Now after he had said these things, he was going to the front as he went up to Jerusalem. Now it occurred that when he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany, at the mountain called the Mountain of Olives, he dispatched 2 of the students, saying, You must go into the village facing you, and as you go into it, you will find a donkey colt tied there, on which no human has ever sat. You must release it and lead it to me. Now if anyone asks you, Why are you releasing it? You must declare like this, The master needs it. Now those who had been dispatched went away and found it just as he had said to them. Now as they were releasing the donkey colt, its master said to them, "Why are you releasing the colt?" Now they said, "The master needs it." So they led it to Jesus, and after they tossed their outer garments on the colt, they mounted Jesus on it. Zechariah 9, verse 9. Now as he was going, they were spreading their outer garments under him in the road. Now as he was drawing near, already at the point where the mountain of Olives descends, the entire multitude of the students began rejoicing, praising Almighty with a loud voice about all the powerful works that they had noticed, saying, "The one who has been blessed, the King who comes in the Master's name, Jesus." Musical Composition 118, verse 26. Peace in heaven and esteem among the highest. Then some of the Pharisees from the crowd said to him, "Teacher, you must rebuke your students." Then in response he said, "I say to you, if these become silent, the stones will yell out." Then as he drew near, when he noticed the city, he wept over it, saying, "If you had known on this day, even you, the terms for peace, yet it is a fact that they have been hidden from your eyes. For the days will arrive upon you when your enemies will throw up an embankment around you, and will surround you, and will press in on you from every side. They will flatten you and your children inside you, and they won't leave a stone upon a stone in you, because you didn't know the time period when Almighty was coming to take care of you." Then, when he entered into the sacred place, he began to throw out those who were selling, saying to them, "It has been written, and my house must be a house of prayer." Isaiah 56, verse 7. Yet you made it into a cave of robbers. Then he began teaching day after day in the sacred place. Yet the chief priests and the Bible scholars and the most prominent ones of the people began seeking to destroy him. But they weren't finding what they might do, for all the people hung around him to hear him. Luke chapter 20. Now it occurred on one of these days, while he was teaching the people in the sacred place and spreading the good message, that the chief priests and the Bible scholars, together with the older ones, came and stood by him and said, speaking to him, "You must tell us by what authority you are doing these things, or who is the one who gave you this authority?" Now in response he said to them, "I will also ask you a word, and you must tell me. Was John's immersion from heaven or from humans?" Now they reasoned together among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will declare, 'Why didn't you believe him?' Yet if we say from humans, all the people will stone us, for they are persuaded that John was a prophet." So they responded that they weren't aware of from where. So Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." Now he began to tell the people this illustration. A human planted a vineyard and leased it to farmers, and went traveling for a considerable time. Then, at the harvest time, he dispatched a slave to the farmers, so that they would give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. Yet the farmers lashed him and sent him away empty-handed. So in addition, he sent a different slave. Yet that one they also lashed and dishonored, and sent him away empty-handed. So in addition, he sent a third. Yet this one they also wounded and threw out. Now the master of the vineyard said, "What should I do? I will send my dearly loved son. They will show respect for him equally with me." Yet when the farmers noticed him, they began reasoning with one another, saying, "This is the heir. Let's kill him, so that the inheritance might become ours." So they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. So then, what will the master of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy these farmers, and will give the vineyard to others. Now, when they heard this, they said, May it not come to that. Yet he looked at them and said, What then is this that has been written? The stone that was disapproved by the builders, it became the head cornerstone, a pyramid's top stone. Musical composition 118, verse 22. Whoever falls on that stone, its top point, will be broken into pieces. Yet whoever it falls on, it will pulverize and scatter him like chaff. Now the Bible scholars and the chief priests sought to put their hands on him during this hour, but they were afraid of the people, for they knew that he had spoken this illustration against them. So they kept close notice on him and dispatched detectives who pretended to be just, so that they might take hold of a saying of his, in order to deliver him over to the chieftaincy and the authority of the governor. Then they asked him, saying, Teacher, we are aware that you are saying and teaching correctly, and don't accept the surface appearance of people, showing favoritism, but are truly teaching the way of Almighty. Is it allowed for us to pay a tax to Caesar or not? Now he considered their craftiness, and said to them, Show me a number 80 Roman coin. Whose image and inscription does it have? Now they said, Caesar's. Now he said to them, Now then, you must pay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to Almighty what belongs to Almighty. Now they weren't strong enough to take hold of a declaration of his in front of the people, and marveling at his response, they became silent. Now some of the Sadducees, the ones who say that there is to be no resurrection, approached and asked him, saying, Teacher, Moses wrote to us, if anyone's brother dies, who had a wife, but was childless, that his brother should take the wife and raise up seed, or children, for his brother. Deuteronomy 25, verse 5. So then, there were 7 brothers, and the first, after he had taken a wife, died childless. So the second and the third took her, and now all 7 did the same thing, and died and left no children. Later the woman also died. So then, in the resurrection, whose wife is she going to become? For all 7 had her as a wife. Then Jesus said to them, The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, yet those who are considered worthy to encounter that age and the resurrection from among the dead aren't going to marry or be given in marriage, for they aren't even going to be able to die anymore, for they're going to be equal to the messengers, and are going to be Almighty's sons, meaning like Almighty, because they are sons of the resurrection. Yet that the dead are going to be awakened, even Moses divulged at the bramble bush, as he calls the Master the Almighty of Abraham, and the Almighty of Isaac, and the Almighty of Jacob. Exodus 3, verse 6. Now he isn't the Almighty of the dead, but of the living, those who will live in the last age. For to him they are all alive. Now in response, some of the Bible scholars said, Teacher, you have spoken ideally. For they were no longer daring to ask him about anything. Now he said to them, How can they say that the Anointed One is David's son? For David himself says in the scroll of the musical compositions, or psalms, The Master said to my Master, You must sit at my right, until I place your enemies under your feet like a footstool. Musical composition 110, verse 1. So then, David calls him Master, so how can he be his son? Now while all the people were hearing, he said to his students, "You must be continually paying attention to the Bible scholars, who like to walk around in long robes, and are fond of greetings in the marketplaces, and the best seats in the assemblies, and the best reclining places at the suppers. They devour the homes of widows, and for a pretense are praying long prayers. These will get a more abundant judgment." Luke chapter 21. Now when he looked up, he noticed the rich throwing their presents into the treasury. Yet he noticed a certain hard-working widow, who was throwing in there 2 number 1 Jewish coins. So he said, "Truly I say to you, this poor widow has thrown in more than all of them. For all these, out of their abundance, threw something in with the presents. Yet she, out of her neediness, threw in all the livelihood that she had." Now while some were saying things about the sacred place, that it had been decorated with ideal stones and pledged donations, he said, "As for these things which you gaze at, the days will come when not a stone will be left here upon a stone, that won't be demolished." Now they asked him, saying, "Teacher, so then, when will these things be? And what will be the sign when these things are about to occur?" Now he said, "You must be continually looking out, so that you aren't being led astray. For many will come using my name, or my title, saying, 'I am he,' and the time period is already drawing near. You must not go after them. Now whenever you hear battles and turbulences, you must not be scared, for these things have to occur first. But that isn't immediately the completion of this world." Then he continued by saying to them, "Nation will get up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will even be great quakes, and in place after place famines and plagues. There will be fearful sights and even great signs from heaven. Yet before all these things they will put their hands on you, and will persecute you, delivering you over into the assemblies and jails, leading you off before kings and governors on account of my name, Jesus. The outcome will be an opportunity for your testimony. So then, you must ponder in your hearts not to develop your defense beforehand, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom which none of your opponents will be able to stand up against or contradict. Yet you will be delivered over even by your parents, brothers, sisters, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by everyone because of my name, Jesus. But not a hair of your head shall under any circumstances be destroyed in the destruction. You must acquire your sentient beings for the last age by your endurance. Now when you notice Jerusalem surrounded by encampments, then you must know that the making of her into a waste is already drawing near. Then those in Judea must run away into the mountains, and those inside her must go out into the country, and those in the country must stop entering into her, because these are the days for the giving out of justice, to fulfill everything that has been written. Now how terrible it is for those who are pregnant, and those who are nursing babies during those days, for there will be a great torment upon the land, and anger for these people. Then they will fall by the edge of the sword, and will be led captive into all the nations, and Jerusalem will be trodden down by the pagans until the time periods of the pagans are fulfilled. Then there will be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the earth nations will feel pressure, in perplexity at the reverberating roar and shaking waves of the sea, while humans black out, or lose their senses, from fear and expectation about the things which are coming upon the inhabited earth, because the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Humanity coming in a cloud with power and much esteem. Daniel 7 verse 13. Now when these things begin to occur, you must straighten up and lift up your heads, because your liberation, because of the payment of the ransom, is drawing near. Then he told them an illustration. You must notice the fig tree, and all the trees. When they have already budded, you observe it for yourselves, and know the summer is already near. So, too, when you notice these things occurring, you must know that Almighty's kingdom is near. Truly I say to you, by no means shall this era pass away, until all things occur. Heaven and earth will pass away, yet my words will by no means pass away. Isaiah 40 verse 8. Now you must continually pay attention to yourselves, so that not at any time your hearts shall be burdened with the hangover, drunkenness, and concerns of life's affairs, and that day comes upon you suddenly, without you noticing it coming, like a trap. For it will intrude on everyone who is situated on the face of all the earth. Now you must be continually vigilant, continually petitioning, praying, on every occasion, so that you might overpower, in order to escape all these things that are going to occur, and to stand acceptable in front of the Son of Humanity. Now during the day he was teaching in the sacred place, yet during the night he would go out and spend the night on the mountain called the Mountain of Olives. Then all the people would come early to him in the sacred place to hear him. Luke chapter 22. Now the festival of unleavened biscuits, which is called the Passover observance, was drawing near, and the chief priests and the Bible scholars were seeking how to do away with him, for they were afraid of the people. Now Satan, the adversary, entered into Judas, who was called the Iscariot, who was one of those numbered among the 12. Now he went away and conferred with the chief priests and officers about how he might deliver him over to them. Then they rejoiced, and agreed to give him some silver coins. So he consented with acclamation, and began seeking for an opportunity, when there was no crowd, to deliver him over to them. Now the day of the festival of unleavened biscuits came, when the Passover lamb was to be sacrificed. So he dispatched Peter and John, saying, You must go and make the Passover ready for us to eat. Yet they said to him, Where do you want us to make it ready? Now he said to them, Notice, when you enter into the city, a human carrying a jug of water will meet you. You must follow him into the house that he enters. Now you must declare to the head of the house, The teacher says to you, Where is the guest room where I might eat the Passover with my students? And that person will show you a large upper room with places spread. There you must make things ready. Now they went away and found it just as he had declared to them, and they made things ready for the Passover. Then, when the hour had come, he leaned back at the table, and the dispatched envoys with him. Then he said to them, I have intensely desired to eat this Passover observance with you before I suffer. For I say to you, under no circumstances shall I from now on drink from the product of the grapevine until Almighty's kingdom comes. Then he took a biscuit, and after he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, This represents my body. This is going to be given for you. You must be continually doing this as a reminder of me. In the same manner, he also took the cup after the supper, saying, "This cup represents the new contract of my blood that is going to be poured out for you." However, notice, the hand of the one who is going to deliver me over is with me on the table. For the Son of Humanity is going, just as it has been designated. However, how terrible it is for that human through whom he is delivered over. So they, therefore, began to discuss among themselves which of them it might be who was about to commit this thing. Now there also occurred a contention among themselves as to which of them seemed to be the greatest. Now he said to them, "The kings of the pagans are like masters over them, and those who exercise authority over the pagans get themselves called doers of good work. Yet you are never to be like this. Rather, the greatest among you must continually be like the youngest, and the leader like the servant. For who is greater, the person who is lying back at the table, or the servant serving him? Isn't it the one who is lying back? Yet I am among you like a servant who is serving you. Now you are the ones who have continued with me in my tests. So just as the Father has contracted a kingdom to me, I am contracting with you, to be eating and drinking at my table in my kingdom. And you will sit on thrones, judging 12 tribes of Israel." Now the Master said, "Simon, Simon, notice, Satan, the adversary, has claimed the right to sift you like grain. Yet I have petitioned concerning you, that your faith might not fail. And when once you have returned again, you must solidly establish your brothers and sisters." Now he said to him, "Master, I'm ready to go with you both to jail and to death." Yet he said, "I say to you, Peter, a rooster won't crow today until you have disowned 3 times that you are acquainted with me." Then he said to them, "When I dispatched you without money bag or provisions bag or additional sandals, you weren't in need of anything, were you?" Now they said, "No, nothing." Yet he said to them, "But now whoever has a money bag must pick it up, likewise also a provisions bag, and whoever has none must sell his outer garment and buy a sword. For I say to you that this that has been written about me has to be done completely." And he was regarded as being among the lawless. Isaiah 53 verse 12. For even this which concerns me is going to have its completion. Now they said, "Master, notice, here are 2 swords. Now he said to them, "Enough of that." Then he went out and went to the mountain of Olives, according to his custom. Now the students also followed him. Now after he had come upon the place, he said to them, "You must be continually praying not to enter into testing." Then he pulled away from them about a stone's throw away, and he knelt and began praying, saying, "Father, if it is your intention, let this cup be carried away from me. However, not what I want, but what you want must be continually done." No verses 43 or 44. Then, when he rose up from his prayer and came to the students, he found them where they had fallen asleep from sorrow. So he said to them, "Why are you lying down asleep? You must rise up and be continually praying, so that you shall not enter into testing." While he was still speaking, notice, a crowd came, and the one called Judas, one of the 12, came before them. And he drew near to Jesus to kiss him. Yet Jesus said to him, "Judas, are you delivering over the Son of Humanity with a kiss?" Now when those around him noticed what was going to happen, they said, "Master, should we strike with our swords?" Then a certain one of them struck the slave of the chief priest and removed his right ear. Now in response, Jesus said, "You must quit it. No more of this." Then he touched his ear and healed him. Now Jesus said to the chief priests and officers of the sacred place, and older ones who had come along after him, "Have you come out with swords and clubs, as after a robber? While I was with you day after day in the sacred place, you didn't stretch out your hands for me. But this hour and the authority of darkness belongs to you." Now after they had apprehended him, they led him away, and led him into the house of the chief priest. Now Peter was following a distance away. Now after they had ignited a fire in the middle of the courtyard, and had sat down together, Peter began sitting among them. Now when a certain servant girl noticed him sitting by the fire's light, she looked intently at him and said, "This person was also with him." Yet he disowned him, saying, "I'm not acquainted with him, woman." Then after a bit, a different one noticed him, and affirmed, "You are also one of them." Yet Peter affirmed, "Human, I am not." Then, after an interval of about 1 hour, another one began emphatically insisting, saying, "It is true, this person was also with him, for he is a Galilean too." Yet Peter said, "Human, I'm not aware of what you are speaking about." And instantly, while he was still speaking, a rooster crowed. Then the master turned and looked at Peter, and Peter was reminded of the master's declaration, how he had said to him, "Before a rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times." Then Peter went outside and wept bitterly. Now the men who were pressing in on Jesus kept mocking him, while they punched him. Then they put a covering over him and kept asking him, saying, "Prophesy, who is it that hit you?" Then they began saying many different slandering things against him. Then, as it became day, the body of the older ones of the people gathered, both chief priests and Bible scholars, and they led him away into their Jewish council, saying, "If you are the Anointed One, you must tell us." Yet he said to them, "If I tell you, under no circumstances would you believe it. Yet if I ask you something, under no circumstances would you respond. Yet from now on, the Son of Humanity will be sitting at the right hand of the power of Almighty." Musical Composition 110, verse 1. Now they all said, "So then, you are the Son of Almighty?" Now he affirmed to them, "It is as you say I am." Now they said, "What need do we still have of testimony? For we have heard it ourselves from his own mouth." Luke chapter 23. Then the entire multitude of them rose up and led him to Pilate. Now they began to accuse him, saying, "We found this person perverting our nation, and forbidding us to give taxes to Caesar, and saying that he himself is the Anointed One, a king." Now Pilate asked him, saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Now in response to him, he affirmed, "It is as you say." Now Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I don't find one fault in this human." Yet they kept on insisting, saying, "He is exciting the people, teaching all over Judea, beginning even from Galilee, to as far as here." Now when Pilate heard this, he asked if the human was a Galilean. Then, when he recognized that he was under Herod's authority, he sent him up to Herod. as he was also in Jerusalem on these days. Now when Herod noticed Jesus, he was overjoyed, for he had wanted for a considerable time to become acquainted with him, because he had been hearing about him, and was hoping to notice some sign made by him. Now he began asking him with considerable words, yet he didn't give any response to him. Isaiah 53 verse 7. Now the chief priests and the Bible scholars were standing there, vigorously accusing him. Now after Herod, together with his troops, had treated him with contempt, and mocked him, clothing him in dazzling attire, musical composition 69 verse 19, and Isaiah 53 verse 3, he sent him back to Pilate. Now both Herod and Pilate became friends with one another that very day, for before this they had existed with animosity between them. Now Pilate called together the chief priests, the chiefs of the Jewish council, and the people, and said to them, "You brought this human to me as one who is turning the people away, and notice, after I have examined him in your sight, I haven't found one fault in this human, in the things that you are accusing him. Nor did Herod, for he sent him back to us. And notice, nothing deserving of death has been committed by him. So then, after I have disciplined him, Isaiah 53 verse 5, I will release him." No verse 17. Yet they yelled out, all as one multitude, saying, "You must take this one away, yet you must release Barabbas, son of the Father, for us." He was the one who had been thrown into jail because of a certain insurrection that had occurred in the city, and for murder. Yet Pilate shouted to them again, as he wanted to release Jesus. Yet they shouted back, saying, "You must fasten him to a stake! You must fasten him to a stake!" Yet a third time he said to them, "Why? What bad thing has he done? I have found in him not one cause for death. So then, after I have disciplined him, I will release him." Yet they kept pressing on with loud voices. Musical composition 22 verses 12 through 13, requesting that he be fastened to a stake, and their voices were overpowering. So Pilate pronounced his judgment that their request was to occur. Now he released the person whom they were requesting, who had been thrown into jail for insurrection and murder. Yet he delivered Jesus over to them for them to do what they wanted. Then, as they led him away, they took hold of a certain Simon from Cyrene, a city in Libya, North Africa, coming from a field, and placed the stake on him to carry behind Jesus. Now there was following him a great multitude of the people, and of women who were grieving and wailing over him. Now Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, stop weeping for me. However, weep for yourselves and for your children. For notice, the days are coming when they will declare, 'Happy are the barren, and the bellies that don't give birth, and the breasts that don't nourish.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.'" Hosea 10 verse 8. For if they are doing these things with the wet or green wood, a tree that is doing good works, what shall occur with the dry one that isn't doing good works? Now 2 others also, who were criminals, were being led to be done away with together with him. Isaiah 53 verse 12. Then, when they came upon the place called the Skull, a skull-shaped hill, there they fastened him to the stake and the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Yet Jesus was saying, "Father, Forgive them, for they aren't aware of what they are doing." Now as they divided his garments, they threw a lot. Musical composition 22, verse 18. Then the people stood gazing. Now the chiefs also openly began turning up their noses in contempt. Musical composition 22, verse 7, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is the anointed one of Almighty, the chosen one." Now the soldiers also mocked him, as they approached and brought vinegar, sour wine, to him. Musical composition 69, verse 21, and said, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." Now there was also an inscription over him, "This is the king of the Jews." Now one of the criminals who had been hung there was slandering him, saying, "Aren't you the anointed one? Save yourself and us." Yet in response, the other one, rebuking him, affirmed, "Aren't you afraid of Almighty, since you are under the same judgment? Now we are being judged justly, for we are getting back things worthy of what we committed. Yet this one has committed nothing out of line." Then he was saying, "Jesu, remember me when you come to your kingdom." Then he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise, the new third earth of the last age." Revelation 21, verse 1 through 22, verse 2. Then it was already about the 6th hour, or 12 noon, and darkness occurred over the whole land until the 9th hour, 3 p.m. Amos 8, verse 9, because the sun failed to shine. Now the curtain of the temple was split down the middle. Then Jesus, shouting with a loud voice, said, "Father, I place my spirit before you in your hands." Musical composition 31, verse 5. Now after he said this, he expired. Now when the captain noticed what had occurred, he began esteeming Almighty, saying, "This human really was just." Then all the crowds who came along together to gaze at this, after they had gazed at the things that had occurred, began returning, beating their chests. Now all those known to him, and the women who followed with him from Galilee, stood a distance away. Musical composition 38, verse 11. Seeing these things. Now notice, there was a man named Joseph, who possessed the position of a counselor, a member of the Jewish council, a good and just man. He hadn't been concurring in their counsel and committed act. A person from Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who was anticipating Almighty's kingdom. This person approached Pilate and requested the body of Jesus. Then he took it down and folded it up in a linen sheet, and placed him in a tomb cut in stone, Isaiah 53, verse 9, where no one had ever been laid. Now it was the preparation day, Friday, and the Sabbath day was about to start. That is, it was Friday just before sunset. Now the women who had come together with him out of Galilee had followed behind, and gazed at the tomb, and how his body was placed in it. Now after they returned, they made ready spices and aromatic herb oils, and of course they were quiet on the Sabbath day, Saturday, according to the direction. Luke chapter 24. Now in the early depths before sunrise of Sunday, the first day after the Sabbath day, they came to the tomb, bringing the spices that they had made ready. Now they found that the stone had been rolled away from the tomb. Now when they entered, they didn't find the body of the Master Jesus. Now it occurred that while they were perplexed about this, Notice, 2 men came and stood by them in attire that flashed like lightning. Now as the women became frightened and bowed their faces to the earth, these 2 said to them, "Why are you seeking for the living one among the dead? He isn't here, but he has been awakened. Remember how he spoke to you while he was still in Galilee, saying, 'The Son of Humanity has to be delivered over into the hands of humans who will do things that are wrong, and to be fastened to a stake, and on the 3rd day rise up.'" Then they remembered his declarations. Then they returned from the tomb and reported all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. Now they were Mary the Magdalene, Joanna, Luke 8 verse 3, and Mary, the mother of Alphaeus' sons, James, the little one, and Joseph. And they and the rest of the women together with them were telling these things to the dispatched envoys. Now these declarations appeared in their sight like nonsense, and they refused to believe them. Yet Peter rose up and ran to the tomb, and when he peered in, he observed only the fabric wrappings. Then he went away, marveling to himself at what had occurred. Now notice, 2 of them were going on the same day into the village named Emmaus, which was about 60 stadium lengths, or about 7 miles away from Jerusalem. Now they were conversing with one another about all these things that had happened. Then it occurred that during their conversation and discussion, Jesus himself drew near and began going together with them. Yet their eyes were being held from recognizing him. Now he said to them, "What are these words that you are swapping with one another as you are walking?" Then they stood still with sad features. Now in response, one of them, named Cleopas, said to him, "Are you the only one who is still a foreigner in Jerusalem? Don't you know the things that have occurred in her during these days?" Then he said to them, "What things?" Now they said to him, "The things about Jesus the Nazarene, a man who became a prophet, powerful in work and word in front of Almighty and all the people, so that both our chief priests and chiefs delivered him over to the judgment of death and fastened him to a stake. Yet we were hoping that he was the one who was going to pay the ransom for Israel. But then definitely, together with all of these things, the 3rd day is passing since these things occurred. But also, some women among us amazed us, when it occurred that they were at the tomb early, and didn't find his body. They came, saying that they had also seen a vision of messengers, who said that he was living. Then some of those with us went away to the tomb, and this is how they found it, just as the women had also said, yet they didn't notice him. Then he said to them, "O you who are foolish and slow of heart, to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Didn't the Anointed One have to suffer these things, and to enter into his esteem? Now beginning with Moses and with all the prophets, he interpreted for them the things concerning himself in all the writings. Now they drew near to the village where they were going, and he made it look as though he was going to go further. Then they urged him, saying, 'You must stay with us, for it is towards dusk, and the day has already declined.' So he entered to stay together with them. Now it occurred that after he reclined at the table with them, he took the biscuit and gave the blessing, and breaking it, he began handing it to them. Now their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. Then he disappeared from their sight. Then they said to one another, "Weren't our hearts burning inside us as he was speaking to us on the road, as he was opening up the writings to us?" Then they rose up, and during that very hour returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 convened together, and those who were with them, and said, "The Master really has been awakened, and has been seen by Simon." Then they began describing the events on the road, and how he was known by them in the breaking of the biscuit. Now, while they were speaking about these things, he stood among them and said to them, "Peace to you." Now, since they were scared and becoming frightened, they began having the impression that they were gazing at a spirit. Then he said to them, "Why are you disturbed? And why are reasonings coming up in your hearts? You must notice my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. You must feel me and notice, for a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones as you gaze at me having." Then, after he had said this, he showed them his hands and feet. Now while they still refused to believe it for joy, and were marveling, he said to them, "Do you have any food in this place?" Now they handed him part of a broiled fish, and he took it and ate it before them. Now he said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all the things that have been written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets, and musical compositions, or psalms, have been fulfilled." Then he opened up their minds to understand the writings, and said to them, "This is how it has been written, that the Anointed One was to suffer and rise up from among the dead on the third day, and that a change in thoughts and feelings that leads to the forgiveness of wrongdoings was to be proclaimed using his name, Jesus, to all the nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things. Now notice, I am dispatching the promise of my Father upon you. Yet you must be situated in the city, Jerusalem, until you have been clothed with power from out of the high place." Now he led them as far as Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and gave a blessing about them. Then it occurred that while he was giving the blessing about them, he put an interval between himself and them, and was carried up into heaven. Now after they had worshipped him, they returned to Jerusalem with great joy. Then they were in the sacred place regularly, blessing Almighty.